Welcome once again. Now, the House of Representatives is demanding 500 billion naira recapitalization of electricity distribution companies, or DisCos, to enhance their financial stability and improve power delivery to Nigerians. This resolution follows a motion presented by Ayokunle Isiaka, APC Ogun State, during a plenary session. Isiaka criticized the DisCos for their alleged financial mismanagement and exploitative practices, including demands for additional payments to replace prepaid meters, which consumers had already paid for.
Following the adoption of the motion, Speaker Tajudeen Abbas urged the Federal Ministry of Power to classify DisCos as non-state actors and take immediate steps to address what he referred to as their reckless actions. He emphasized that only operators within the financial capacity to meet consumer needs should remain in the sector. Joining us is energy expert and managing partner at DPH Investment, Dr. Onuoha Nnachi. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and good morning to Nigerians.
All right. What will this mean, if this actually plays out and DisCos are quote-unquote classified as non-state actors and the recapitalization is enforced in this case, 500 billion. What would this mean for the DisCos and for the power sector in Nigeria?
First, I will say that the House of Rep people are not in tune with realities of the sector. So if they were, probably they won't think about that motion wouldn't have been raised. I need us to recall that in last year, the 2023 electricity law clearly stated the diversification of the sector, giving powers to the regional government. States are now entitled to establish their own regulatory body and also license DisCos in their states. So which of the DisCos are they talking about? Are they talking about the old licensed DisCos in 2012, 2013? Are they talking about to be licensed DisCos by state governments in their various states? Because as of today, I can tell you that about 7 or 8 states has established their electricity law. And out of that 7 states, 4 or 5 has even gotten the mandate from NEC to establish their regulatory framework. And about 3 has established their regulatory framework. A typical state like Enugu has an existing regulatory framework that every DisCos operated in Enugu abide by and work with. They have a regulator for the state. It is no longer the national regulator. So when they make that statement, it became so laughable that a group of people that are sitting in that chamber could not be in tune with what the market says or what it says, because we must get to that point where the regulators are localized, they are regional based, they are state based. And that way it becomes easier because the circumstances in each state is never the same. The economic indices is never the same. The purchasing power of each state is never the same. So every state has to now begin to operate. What you generate, some of the state has resources to generate power. But because of the original laws that we had in place, they never made use of it. But this law has enabled them to begin to think inward on how they can generate power from the state and regulate from the state. So talking about capitalization, it will not just be an effort in futility, but a waste of taxpayers' money at that point. And another point to look also is, even the so-called national DisCos, when they were licensed in 2013, what were the framework? The framework did not ask for 500 billion capitalization. I realize they have a regulator, though. The National Assembly is not a regulator for that. If they can only make laws. So if they feel anything is wrong, go back to NEC laws and amend it wherever you want to amend. But you are not the one to determine capitalization base. They have a regulator. So there were conditions precedent to that time in 2013 when they were licensed to take over the infrastructures. My concern would be those conditions, how are they adhering to it? And I think I can stop here while we talk more about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to X-ray, how they have adhered to these conditions. Yeah, and I also would have liked that you also share what the major problem these DisCos, are facing are. Many have also, one of the things that was also mentioned, is the mismanagement of funds, running into billions and billions of naira. And so what for you is the major challenges that DisCos across the country currently facing? And what would you have, asked to be done different?
When I speak from the expert knowledge part of it. I speak from an institutional knowledge. I was part and parcel, an integral part of the privatization of the power sector. I played a major, significant role from the investor's point. So we can tell the realities then and the realities now. Let me take Nigerians back for us to understand this. When the DisCos were privatized, there were one condition that was very clear: your ability to reduce losses. There's what we call ATC and C, the aggregated technical commercial losses. This was the parameter used to measure any asset you are acquiring. Anybody acquiring any asset was asked to show how can you reduce these losses, from the technical losses, from the commercial losses, from the collection losses. This was the parameters used to measure this. And for you to reduce all these losses, it means you're going to make an investment. You're going to make an investment in the technical grant. You're going to make an investment in the collection grant. You're going to make an investment in the commercial grant. The question to date that nobody has ever asked: the people that took over DisCos, have they made any investor in this regard? The answer that I can tell any Nigerian that care to listen is capital no. They keep running back to government for intervention fund. If you know you cannot do what you sign off in an agreement, you liquidate the assets. Somebody else take it over. Because I don't see where you sign an agreement and every time you go and lobby people in the presidency, probably negotiate, okay, give us intervention fund, we'll return SY amount to you to gripe you and not. It cannot continue to work. It has been done time with that number. Those intervention funds are money shared by the big boys of this country. It does not give us solution. It does not give us solution. My take about it is, can the government mandate the DisCo owners to implement the agreement they signed in 2013, where you agreed that you are going to make an investment to reduce the technical losses, you're going to make an investment to reduce collection losses, you're going to make an investment to reduce commercial losses. By the way, reducing collection losses means you're going to meter your system.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about it. So it is not even responsibility of the consumers to talk about the meters, but policies are being changed to suit one group of people. How can I be putting money for someone to collect revenue for his business? How? Taxpayers' money? It is never done anywhere in the world.
Okay.
If you must collect money, you must be able to meter what you want to collect. You don't just arbitrarily do that. But the system has been so adjusted. If this government is ready and they are willing at this point in time, I think the best option is take the DisCos, the national DisCos, to the original agreement. Let's begin from there. What have you done in your collection losses? What have you done in your commercial losses? What have you done in technical losses? You are supposed to make an investment to stop your technical losses. You come back and say, oh, I receive 500 megawatt of power. In the cost of distribution, I lost 100 or I lost 150, so I cannot pay for it. Who are you telling that? Can somebody help me answer that question? Who? It's like telling somebody that I bought a goose and in the way of transporting it, my car had an accident and two got damaged, so I cannot pay for that too. Who will you tell that? You are supposed to make sure the vehicle that carries out your goods is sound, strong. That's the technical losses you have to prevent. You have to make sure even that vehicle has an insurance. That goods has an insurance. But when you don't do this because you have someone you can run to and blame and cry foul and threaten the nations and all that, no.
All right.
There are more to it to be done.
We'll come to talk about the metering challenges, but let's also still look at the responsibility of the federal government. The executive director of the Research and Advocacy Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors, Sunday Oduton, had said that the federal government also had a role to play, saying that the government owned 40% of stake when it comes to this DisCos, so that if the government is saying that, you know, you have to be able to raise 500 billion, then you should be able to pay the 40%, and when you pay your 40%, we'll pay 60%. Is that a fair argument?
That was the original model, and is a fair argument. But can we talk about that fair argument from urban issues? If you say we're injecting, let's say I want to prevent my technical losses with 100 billion. I own 40%, so I bring 40 billion and you bring 60 billion. Have the private sector put their 60 billion on the table? That's a question, because government owns the asset. Now, can I ask a very clear question? Let any of the DisCos point clearly say that they have transmitted ₦1 profit margin to the federal government. None have ever done that. None, not even one, not even one. So if you're asking me at this point to come back and contribute, hello, the ones that have done, where's our profit? Can we retrospectively calculate it and begin to say, this is the revenue generated, this is the profit margin? If I'm federal government, I will even be talking about this. I will ask the federal government call me for me to go to the DisCos and let them give us their book. The profit they have made, they have been sharing among themselves. What has it remitted to federal government? The taxpayers that own 40%. How many years gone? We are talking about 10 years plus gone. Can you make an investment in a business that you own 40%? Me and you, as we are seated, a business you own 40% and you keep injecting money, you have no return on investment for you in 10 years. Is that a viable business? Is that the people that is operating it are fraudulent? That's what you need to be declaring. So it's very obvious. The argument he made is a viable argument. It is contained in the agreement. I participated in putting that agreement together because I was one of the investors in the acquisition process. So I can tell you, even when I'm part of the investors, but I must hold Nigerians first. Nigeria is my country, and Nigerians must be told the truth and benefit from the realities of the truth. So it is something that we need to resolve and get a lasting solution to it.
Yeah. Let's also look outside the DisCos for Nigerians who, of course, you know, have given up, you know, on the whole energy sector. There's the transmission, there's the, you know, generation. Have the DisCos, you know, and the ability to perform also been affected by the inadequacies of these other sectors?
I will capitally say no to that, and I will justify my no to it clearly. There are DisCos today that are rejecting power. If the transmission say they are sending them 300 megawatts up, but they say, no, we can't take it to. No, our distribution network cannot carry it. No, our capacity to collect the value of that, we don't have it. Who is to be blamed on that? That's what I'm telling you my no. And clearly. Now, if we go down to the transmission networks, that is a separate problem. We have a national problem on that, a clear national problem that has to be. And until we make up our mind how to resolve that, and some of us has given a position paper on how to resolve our national network, you cannot keep a national grid in a population of over 200 million. It will not work. We have gotten to that level. Whoever that did that is a selfish assignment. As far back as 2003, there was a proposal that was negotiated with Siemens on how to break our national grid into regional grids so that it can easily be managed. And that was done in 2003. And by 2013, when we were doing the power sector reform, it was brought back to life and agreed that a super grid should be built on top of it. Then you break it to regional grid and have a super grid. So there were propositions to it and there were milestones defined on how to achieve it. You cannot continually to have this collapse and we still have a national grid. We need to understand how this national grid works. It's a monumental failure. So it's either we'll come out of it or we'll continue to lie to ourselves and siphon money from it. That's all we can choose to do. Because let me describe to Nigerians for us to understand how the national grid. Every power generated in Nigeria is collectively sent to a NOC, Network Control Center in Osogbo. It means these powers will pull off their signals to that spot first. If you're generating 5,000 megawatt, Osogbo must first receive it from that knob and then begin to distribute it. Please, can we calculate the cost of taking it to Osogbo and the cost of returning it back to where it should be? That foolishness was when we were small in population, maybe 50 million, 60 million or thereabout, or maximum 100 million, but not today, and not for a nation that wants to industrialize, that wants to develop. So in the cost of returning it back from Osogbo to the various networks, to the various DisCos, there will be losses and there will be failures that will occur. It's a natural phenomenon. So in my own opinion, if we want to really address the transmission, we can start first by breaking it into two regions. Let's have northern transmission and southern transmission.
Yeah.
And that network will be built so that when it fails, we know it's a region that failed. And you can superpass with the super transmission network to service the other one. And it will not be a national collapse. And once you do those two regions, you now begin further to move it into region and into 6 of the geopolitical regions. And you have northeast transmission line and the north central, northwest, southeast. These transmission lines will be independent. And because we have changed the structure of the power sector by allowing the subnational to generate and distribute, automatically this local generation will feed into their subnational transmission line. And if there's a failure, it is that region or it is that state. It can be understood and managed.
All right.
Not what we have. We should go back to the drawing board and address the reality and so that we can come out of it.
Yeah, well, let's hope the current power minister understands the need to go back to the drawing board, at least, puts everyone on their feet. Onuoha Nnachi, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And we, of course, would love to have you back again as things develop in Nigeria's power sector.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Nigerians, for listening. Have a lovely day.